Organization and staffing structures. Managers will have to work within structures often not of their choosing. They will have to be negotiators, decision makers, communicators, and understanders of a wide variety of professional and lay staff. An appropriate staff structure will assist the manager in the achievement of the goals of any organization, but it is no alternative to good management. Rather, it is a means to an end, and is only good if it is good for the organization it serves. Furthermore, organization structures provide only a framework for management and staff to work within. Figure 23.2. So this shows an example of an organization with a wide span of control. The type of structure will depend on several important factors: the nature of controlling body, the aims and objectives of the organization, the stability of the environment in which the organization operates, the distribution of facilities, the financial targets, the scale and nature of the facilities and resources, the location, layout, and design of facilities, the nature of the service to be provided, the levels of performance, the ability of management and staff, and the level of delegation possible, and lastly, the hours of operation. Meaning to say, a structured and a well-managed organizations can achieve more than a collection of individuals. Through the organization's pool of knowledge and resources, the necessary tasks can also be accomplished more quickly and efficiently. Formal and informal organizations. There is a need to distinguish between informal and formal organizations. A formal organization has a clearly defined structure that establishes relationships and differences in status, role, rank, and levels of authority. While in contrast, an informal organization has a much less defined structure, and it is also likely to be much smaller in size, and more likely to have a shorter lifespan. In certain circumstances, an informal organization will be converted into a formal one, such as when an interest group forms a club or society with rules and a constitution. According to Nancy Foy, year 1981, she believes that it is time we humanize our systems. We need to scrap them as long as they remain human in scale. Designing formal structures. Forming an organization structure is like creating a structure from building blocks. The work unit or the job of an individual worker is the smallest building block in the structure as a whole. Organizing is the process of dividing up the work in a structured framework. Managers have distinct tasks in setting up the staffing structure, and these are dividing the work or task into jobs, grouping similar tasks, specifying and controlling the relationships between the groups, delegating authority for carrying out the jobs or group of jobs, specifying the authority or control over the groups, that which can be centralized or decentralized to varying levels, and lastly, in organizations like a large leisure center, local authority department, theater, or park, creating line and staff relationships. Departmental structures. Departmentalization by numbers was the most frequent method in the organization of tribes and armies. But with the need for specialized staff, this strictly hierarchical method is now usually confined to the lower tiers of an organization, such as the cleaning staff at a major event stadium. To be effective, managers must divide the workload into manageable parts. The main purpose of dividing the work is to establish methods of determining section responsibilities, the distribution of authority to individuals in the processes of delegation. So again, the most used method of dividing work is departmentalization, and that is dividing the workforce into units and departments. There are different avenues that managers can follow in creating departments, and the first four was suggested by Grossman, year 1980. The first one is function. These are departments in which staff are grouped according to function. For example, sports, coaching, arts and crafts, and maintenance. The second one is the clientele. These departments are grouped according to the clientele they are to serve. For example, junior, youth, and senior citizens. The third one is geographic. Staff are grouped according to the area in which they work. For example, a large borough could have area or district departments. The fourth one is process. These are usually service-giving departments and grouped according to the process used in providing the particular services. For example, an information service or counseling. The last one is time or shift. Staff are grouped in shifts to cover all the hours that the service or facility is open. Functional departments. Functional departments are a logical and time-proven approach and are the most common method used in the leisure industry. Client and service departments. Clientele departments encourage the staff to concentrate on client needs. They can also give confidence to the customers. In that way, they feel being served by an understanding organization. Geographic departments. The advantages of geographic departments include decentralizing the service nearer to potential clients and placing responsibility with some managers and staff at lower tiers of the organization. This gives personnel the opportunity to take higher levels of responsibility and achieve job satisfaction. The last one is the departments based on time or shift patterns. These are usually at the lower levels of an organizational structure where the service extends well beyond the normal 8-hour working day.
Maris Dayan Bayudan, third reporter. Line and line-in staff organizations. Organizational charts normally depict line organizations in which authority is passed on from the highest to the lowest levels via chain of command. Every business or company, whether it's big or small, needs an organizational structure to carry out its daily operation, and it will help increase work efficiency and productivity. In line and staff organizations, staff personnel are incorporated in addition to line staff. Ang mga staff personnel ay isinasama or idinadagdag sa line staff like personal assistant, personnel manager. Staff personnel are frequently specialists who service line personnel. Kaya idinadagdag ang mga staff personnel sa line organization kasi sila yung mga kadalasang specialist na nagbibigay ng service sa line personnel. The financial and technical officers at one leisure center carry out their staff functions in office hours and their line functions as duty managers in the evenings and at weekends. Ang mga financial and technical officers ang responsible sa pag-carry out ng staff and line functions. Figure 23.3 is the line and staff organizations that shows a systematic arrangement of people working for the organization in order to achieve a certain goal, or at different levels, how people are working, what is their authority with them, what are their responsibilities, and how we arrange different people in an organization. So as we can see from the line organizations, from the Director of Leisure Services down to Assistant Director of Leisure Services and so on, shows the authority flows from the top to the bottom vertically in a straight line manner, and it has the responsibility and accountability flows in an opposite but equally direct vertical manner. Every employee at the same level performs by and large the same type of work. Departments are created for the sake of convenience to the supervisor, and they work as a self-sufficient unit under the supervision of a manager. Table 23.1, Line Functions and Staff Functions. Line functions. Line directs or orders. Line has responsibility to carry out activities from beginning to end. Line follows chain of command. Line decides when and how to use staff or for line use. Line is the doing part of the organization, while staff functions. Staff advise, staff studies, reports, recommends, but does not carry out. Staff assists line but is not part of chain. Staff always available. Staff is the assisting part of the organization. So, meaning to say, si line ay ang nagbibigay ng order or ang nag-uutos. Sila yung responsible for directing, motivating, and supervising employees at all levels. Sila din yung may sinusunod na chain of command at sila yung gumagawa ng desisyon within an organization. While sa staff naman, ang mga staff yung nagbibigay ng advice, sila yung nag-aaral ng mga reports at recommends, nagbibigay ng assist sa mga line organization or line personnel, pagkakailangan. At hindi tulad ni line na may sinusunod na chain of command, so yung mga staff, wala silang sinusunod na command. Basta gagawin lang nila yung trabaho na naka-assign sa kanila. Separate staff functions have advantages, including reduction in cost. Example is one finance officer for several sections, an arm's length objectivity, and specialist inputs into the organization. Next is the different organization structure. Figure 23.4 shows the mechanistic or organic continuum, where mechanistic organization operates more effectively when the environment is stable. Formal structures predominate. Control, authority, and communication usually follow hierarchical patterns. The work is broken down into differentiated tasks with precise instructions that become highly standardized. Interaction tends to follow hierarchical lines between superior and subordinate. There is a general assumption that those higher up the hierarchy are better equipped to make the more important decisions, and operational actions tend to be governed by instructions issued by superiors. So, meaning to say, mechanistic organization ay more formal and bureaucratic, associated with centralized decision-making and supervision, may formal communication methods, favors standardized policies and procedures, and later perceive need to change. While the organic organization is better suited to operate in an environment where change is a factor, it is adaptable to changing conditions. Informal structures are permitted. One's special knowledge and experience are looked at in terms of what they can contribute to the overall task. Problems are not pushed upward, downward, or sideways. Backpassing is discouraged. Control, authority, and communication move through a wide network rather than a single hierarchical structure. Communication tends to be more lateral than vertical, and content consists of information and advice rather than instructions and handed down decisions. And leadership in a given situation tends to fall to the person with the most appropriate expertise and ability in that field. Meaning to say, ang organic organization is informal, flexible and fluid or easy to change, favors verbal communication, associated with decentralized decision-making and empowerment, and find change easier to handle. So, kapag binalikan natin yung figure 23.4, makikita natin na ang mechanistic is rigidly structured or vertical and more bureaucratic, while the organic continuum naman is flexibly structured or horizontal and more on decentralization. Next is the vertical and horizontal structures and decentralization. Vertical organizations tend to be highly structured and the role expectations of staff is strictly controlled, leaving little room for individual discretion and initiative. So, the word vertical refers to the fact that the organization works from the top to the bottom and that employees are not required or expected to contribute to the choices that you make regarding how the company operates. Horizontal organizations tend to be more loosely structured with fewer constraints, leaving staff with considerable discretion to define how best to achieve the overall objectives. In a horizontal organization, Your business has a flat structure, which means there are very few managers and more authority is granted to rank and file employees. This system allows employees to feel empowered because they can make important decisions without needing approval from a manager. Rather than having to satisfy a manager, employees in a horizontal organization are motivated and driven by a company goals, which can improve efficiency and morale. While decentralization can lead to decisions being made more quickly and nearer to the point of action, it reduces lines of communication, reduces status problems, and provides greater job satisfaction. However, decentralization is not appropriate to all situations. When we say decentralization, it is a type of organizational structure in which daily operations and decision-making responsibilities are delegated by top management to middle and lower level managers. This frees up top management to focus more on major decisions. Bureaucracy is a large organization in the United Kingdom, including local authority services, exhibit the culture of organizations based on bureaucracy. Max Weber is a German sociologist and political economist. He extolled the virtues of organizations based on his bureaucratic model, with principles of fixed rules, office hierarchy, levels of graded authority, and written documents or files, which make up the bureau, the office. The bureaucratic model is the most widely implemented form of organization. It is vertical structure. Authority is located at the top of the hierarchy and flows downwards through the organization. Division of labor emphasizes the hierarchy structure and establishes a superior subordinate relationship. So, when you read the term bureaucratic model, you may think of government. A government agency is a strong example of this term's meaning. A bureaucratic model is a way of organizing people so there are clear reporting relationships from the top to the bottom of the organizational chart. At kaya siya vertical structure dahil ang authority ay nanggagaling sa taas pababa. The pyramid. Lawrence Peter is a Canadian famous for coining the term the Peter Principle, or whereby an individual in a hierarchy tends to rise to his or her level of competence. Demonstrates in the Peter Pyramid the way in which proliferating bureaucracies sap human resources. He perceived that the problem with major organizations is that they are constructed upside down, with the point of the operation almost invisible underneath the baggage of top-heavy administration. Leisure service operation looking to prune expenditure often cuts away at jobs at the lower delivery levels. The customer service elements such as the receptionist, ground staff, coaching staff, cleaners, attendants, often a solution least likely to effect a cure. It cuts off the hands that actually provide the service. A pyramid organization structure functions following the shape it's named for, with one leader at the top, a small executive leadership team below, and tiers of managers leading down to the bottom team of employees. Each tier of managers manages the tier below, which distributes the responsibility more evenly. The matrix structure, figure 23.5, shows the matrix organization, where it is normally a combination of a functional departmentalization structure with an overlay of project managers who are responsible for completing specific topics, such as a feasibility study for a swimming pool. So meaning, it is a workplace format in which employees report to two or more managers rather than one manager overseeing every aspect of a project. For example, an employee may have a primary manager they report to as well as one or more project managers they work under. Hybrid structures. The delivery of leisure services calls for flexibility and adaptability. Different forms of organizational structure will suit different situations. Trust management, partnership management, or voluntary management with different needs and resources will require different structures. Sports, arts, and outdoor leisure often call for specially created forms of looser organizational structures. In such leisure environments, with outreach workers, wardens, coaches, teachers, and voluntary support groups, there will be a need to cultivate a flexible management regime. Leisure service delivery, therefore, sometimes called for hybrid staffing structures tailor-made for situations not normally found in other industries because leisure behavior is different from work behavior. It is far more open, people can make choices, and far less predictable. So, ang hybrid structure ay similar sa matrix structure. Ang mga designers, they first create a vertical, functional organization, dividing employees into work departments or perhaps into company divisions, or let's say, for example, separating women's and men's clothing, with further subdivision into functional areas such as production. Then, after gawin si vertical, next naman na gagawin ay horizontal across departments where each is devoted to particular products, programs, or projects. Each employees then is connected vertically to a functional manager above and laterally to team members from other functional departments as well as to a project manager.
Hello, I'm Jaylene Biorgula, and I'm the port reporter on this chapter. The organization charts. The organization chart is the most common approach to portraying the organization structure. It illustrates the hierarchy functions and chain of command. As general framework, it helps those within and outside an organization to visualize the line of authority and communication. It portrays the organization act as framework for sharing the work and indicate level of responsibility. It should be designed to best meet the objectives of the organization and be used to further its work. As mentioned, the organization chart ay madalas na nakakatulong sa isang organization dahil ito ay nagpapadaling magdetalye ng mga role, responsibility, at relationship ng mga tauhan or nasa loob ng isang samahan. And also, the organization charts serve as useful functions in visualizing and reinforcing the organization and its structure. The structure is not infallible, it has limitations. It is skeletal, tends to be flexible, and is only representative as long as the status quo remains. It is not precise about amounts of authority and responsibility. It does not portray the essential informal structure and relationships. The employment of staff and legislation. The employment of staff and staff relations are governed to be a considerable extent by government legislation. Sa nagdaang taon, mayroon nga daw pong pagbabago sa batas ng United Kingdom na nakakaapekto para sa mga employer at empleyado dahil ito ay nagtatakda ng panibagong pamantayan sa mga patakaran ng tauhan. Karamihan sa mga batas ay nagbibigay ng obligasyon at hadlang sa mga employers. Subalit, ang bagong batas nga din daw po na to ay nagpabuti sa kondisyon sa pagtatrabaho ng mga empleyado sa pangkalahatan dahil ito ay nagbigay ng malinaw na ideya sa kanilang karapatan sa trabaho. But also employers have detailed legislation to comport to and procedural guides on employment matters. The Equal Opportunities. The Equal Opportunities Commission or EOC was established under the Sex Discrimination Act 1975 as an independent statutory body. In October 2002, the government proposed merging the EOC, the Commission for Racial Equality, and the Disability Rights Commission to form a single equality body in Great Britain. Responsible for the promotion of equality in the relation of sex, race, disability, sexual orientation, religion, and age. Dito ay para daw po magkaroon ng equal opportunities, iminungkahi ng gobyerno na pagsamasamahin ang EOC, Commission for Racial Equality and Disability Rights Commission upang bumuo ng isang equality body para sa pagsulong sa pagkapantay-pantay ng bawat isa. Sex discrimination. The Sex Discrimination Act or SDA 1975 make it unlawful to discriminate in employment, education, and training in Britain on grounds of sex or marriage. The SDA applies to women and men of any age including children. The Employment Act 1989 amends the Sex Discrimination Act 1975 on the implementation of the principle of the equal treatment for men and women as regard access to employment, vocational training, and promotion on working conditions. Under the sex discrimination, nagkaroon ng Sex Discrimination Act na binago naman ng Employment Act noong 1989 kung saan napatupad ang patas na pagtatrato sa babae man o lalaki tulad na lamang sa pagtatrabaho. Race relations. The Home Office was responsibility for policy and legislation on racial equality. In Great Britain, the Race Relation Act 1976 make it unlawful for anybody to discriminate on grounds of race, color, nationality, including citizenship, or ethnic or national origins. The Act applies to employment, training, education, and the provisions of goods and service. So, sinasabi nga po dito na ang Home Office ay may responsibilidad para sa patakaran at batas sa pagkapantay-pantay ng mga lahi. Sa Race Relation Act naman ay ang batas na nagbabawal para sa mga nagdi-discriminate or nanghuhusga batay sa mga lahi, kulay, nasyonalidad at iba pa. Health and Safety. The Health and Safety Commission or HSC has overall responsibility for developing policy on health and safety at work in Great Britain. And it's currently working on a simpler and more effective system of regulation. The Health and Safety Executive or HSE carries out the day-to-day functions of enforcing health and safety law. So, under the health and safety naman daw po ay may tinatawag na SHC na kung saan ay mayroong pangkalahatang responsibilidad para sa pagbuo ng patakaran sa kalusugan at sa kaligtasan. Samantalang ang HSE naman or Health and Safety Executive ang mga nagpapatupad. The general principle underlying the Act is that employers, in consultation with their employees, will draw up health and safety arrangement within the ward obligations of the law to suit their own work areas. Such as all employers with more than 5 employees must have a written statement covering the organization policy on the health and safety. The statement must be brought to the attentions of all employees. And also the workplace must be made safe and cause no risk to the health of employees. Employers must give employees the information, instruction, training, and supervision necessary. And employees must cooperate with their employer in meeting health and safety requirements and must take responsible care of their own health and safety and the others at workplace. The Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations 1999 set out employers' legal obligation to assess risks in the workplace. There are basic steps in conducting a risk assessment. Look for the hazard, decide who might be harmed and how, evaluate the risk and decide whether the existing precautions are adequate or whether more should be done, record findings, regularly review assessment and revise them. Equality. The Equal Pay Act 1970, amended by the Equal Pay Amendment Regulations 1988, requires men and women to be paid at the same rate of pay for doing the same or broadly similar work, or work of equal value. The purpose of the Act is to eliminate discrimination in pay and other employment matters, such as holidays, sickness, benefit, bonus, overtime, and so on. So dito ay may nabuong batas na nagsasabi na kailangan pareho, hindi lamang sa pagtrato ang babae at lalaki, kundi para na rin sa kanilang mga sweldo or rate. Dahil kadalasan, parehas lang din naman ang trabaho. Ang layunin ng batas na ito ay alisin ang mga diskriminasyon sa sweldo at iba pang issue sa trabaho. Employment. The Employment Protection Act 1975 and the Employment Protection Consolidation Act 1978, as amended by the Employment Act 1982, machinery for promoting good industrial relations and give employees certain including maternity rights, rights for time of work either paid or unpaid for a certain reason, written statement of main terms and condition of employment, an itemized pay statement for employees and protection against unfair dismissal. So it means na ang Employment Protection Act at Employment Protection Consolidation ay naging daan sa pagtaguyod ng mabuting ugnayan sa industriya at bigyan ang empleyado ng mga karapatan. Disability. In the 2001 census, 10.9 million people in the United Kingdom described themselves as having a long-term illness, health problem, or disability. The Disability Rights Commission or DRC was established under the Disability Rights Commission Act 1999 as an independent body funded by the government to work towards eliminating discrimination and promoting equal opportunities for disabled people in the Great Britain. And the Disability Discrimination Act 1995 or DDA aims to the end to the discrimination which many disabled people face. The Act gives disabled people rights in the area of employment, access to goods, facility, and service, buying or renting land or property. So dito naman daw po ang DRC ay itinatag sa ilalim ng Disability Rights Commission noong 1999 bilang isang independenteng katawan na pinondohan ng gobyerno upang magtrabaho at matanggal ang diskriminasyon at masulong naman ang pagkapantay-pantay ng lahat kahit na may kapansanan. Samantalang ang nilalayo naman ng DDA or Disability Discrimination Act ay wakasan ang diskriminasyon na kinakaharap ng maraming taong may kapansanan. Other acts. In addition to this general act is a range of other acts of our alignment that affect the leisure industry and thus the people working in it. The Education Reform Act 1988 introducing local management of school and legislating on the community use of schools. And the Children Act 1989 providing duties and power in the way children's activity are regulated, have also had substantial effect on the employment of personnel. So, sinasabi nga po dito na ang Educational Reform Act ay ang nagpapakilala ng lokal na pamamahala ng mga paaralan at batas sa paggamit ng pamayanan ng mga paaralan. Samantalang in Children Act, nagbigay ng tungkulin at kapangyarihan sa pagkontrol ng activity ng mga bata na may malaking epekto sa pagtatrabaho ng mga tauhan. The range of acts infringing on leisure include legislation on office premises, fair trading, consumer safety, supply and goods, public health, town and country planning, water resources, charities, the countryside, licensing and lotteries, gaming, fire precaution, and so on.
Hi guys, I'm Katrina T. Gonzalez, your PIP reporter from Group 9. So, diversity management, the world of work, especially for employees in the leisure, tourism, and hospitality sectors, has become more diverse and increasingly. So, with more women at the senior levels, a wider ethnic mix, more flexible patterns of working, and greater mobility. Further, the markets are changing. Diversity management recognizes that people are different. For example, Older people have greater spending power than in the past. Disabled people and their carers want accessible leisure facilities and accessible holidays. It includes some of the more obvious and visible differences, such as gender, ethnicity, age, disability, and also less visible differences, such as sexual orientation, background, personality, and work style. Diversity management is about recognizing, valuing, and celebrating these differences. It is based on the belief that groups of people who bring different perspectives together will find better solutions to problems than groups of people who are the same. So, ang diversity management is just about sa pagkilala, pag-value, or pag-give ng importance at pag-celebrate ng differences ng employees in the world of work. The example of these differences which diversity management recognizes are visible differences or yung manonotice mo agad sa kanila, yung the gender, age, ethnicity, and if ever na may disability. They are also less visible or hindi agad napapansin, like the sex orientation, kung bi ba siya or what, background, personality, and the work of style. In short, diversity management is basically the belief na a group of people with a different perspective o pananaw sa buhay can absolutely make the best solution to a problem. Kasi they can give different suggestions or ideas unlike those groups of people who are totally the same kasi it only means that they are all in the same level of thinking. Diversity management focuses on individuals rather than on stereotypes groups, and so builds on the concept of inclusiveness and equal opportunities. So, yun nga yung diversity management ay mas nagko-focus sa ating mga individuals rather than the stereotypes groups. And so, dito nabubuo ang concept of inclusiveness and the equal opportunity. Government legislation and regulations means that organizations need to put in place a number of policy statements and actions to conform with the law. Key areas include policy on health and safety, policy on equal opportunities, policy on disability, policy on non-harassment, policy on data protection and personal details, and policy on employee rights. The new equality legislation came into force in 2003. The Employment Equality Sexual Orientation Regulation and the Employment Equality Religion or Belief Regulation in 2003. It is a major step forward for unfair discrimination in the UK. The UK government played an active role in negotiating two European directives whose impact will be significant in tackling discrimination across the European Union. The Race Directive outlaws discrimination on grounds of racial or ethnic origin in the areas of employment, vocational training, goods and services, social protection, and education. So, in summary, these acts of parliament and other legislation illustrate the legal and contractual implication for employer and employee, and this law affects leisure organization, leisure management, and the staff. So, ang staff selection or pagpili ng mga tamang employees ay isa sa pinakamahalagang gawain ng employer and managers. Why? Kasi nakadepende ang isang successful na management sa pagkakaroon ng magagaling na staffs. If they have a poor set of staff, it will surely lead to unhealthy management. Kasi usually, they are very incompetent and they are lacking in flexibility that create blockage sa loob ng system ng organization. So, dapat talaga they should choose their staff wisely. And yung person na i-hire nila is very compatible talaga for the position or for the job, so they will work together and they will be able to meet the goals of the organization. So, while here are some of the methods for selecting staffs: promotion internally, recommendations, headhunting, written presentation, verbal presentation, discussion groups, personality testing, agency shortlisting or recruitment, consultation advice, and interview. Measuring the qualities of leadership potential, emotional stability, and the like has been part and parcel of recruitment practice for many decades.
However, regardless of tests of intelligence and personality and psychometric testing, the job selection remains inexact and subjective. So, sa pagpili ng mga employees, di ba usually the company always choose the best qualities of a employer has. Laging tinitingnan ang kanilang mga kakayahan and if that person is knowledgeable enough for that position or for that job. Pero regardless of that skills, the job selection remains inexact or subjective. Meaning, pabago-bago ang mga qualities na hinahanap nila. Depende sa job na papasukin mo. Okay, the interview, in spite of its critics, remains the primarily method of assessing and selecting staff. The process can be time-consuming and expensive. It becomes even more expensive if the wrong person is selected. Some candidates may be impressive but do not match the job. So, eto nga. Ang pagpili or pag-interview for choosing or selecting staff is really time-consuming at magastos for both sa company and sa employer. At maaari pang lumaki ang gastos kapag maling tao ang kanilang napili. Kaya dapat before hiring someone, dapat they are compatible enough for that job or for that position. Okay. Next is job description, conditions, and personal profiles. The job description and the personal specification for a job are quite distinct. The job description describes the job, its functions, responsibility, and employer's expectations. Its major concerns are with the nature of the work itself and the achievement necessary to meet the goals of that organization. The job conditions set out what the employer has to offer in terms of condition of service, pay, benefits, and prospects. Job descriptions should never be so fixed and demarcated that they become a straitjacket, limiting the development of the job and the person. They should serve as parameter and guidelines encouraging initiatives and enabling growth and job enrichment. So, job description from the word itself, it describes what the job is, kung paano ang kanilang mga ginagawa, and kung ano yung expectation from the employer. The major concern of this is the nature of the work itself, like on how it will be done and yung mga achievements to get to meet the goals of that organization. So, sineset out or mas nakikita din dito yung mga ino-offer ng employer sa isang employee, katulad ng mga usual offer like ng terms of condition and service, pay benefits like the SSS or pag-ibig, and the prospects. So, dapat din daw hindi super fixed ang isang job description para hindi nililimitahan yung development ng isang worker sa trabaho niya. Instead, it should guide the worker to have its growth from working. The person specification sets out the ideal credentials required from candidates to fit the job, their personal characteristics, abilities, qualifications, and experience. So, yung person specification is simple lang. Dito nakalagay yung mga capabilities, yung ideal na credentials na isang tao na required para malaman if the person is really fit for the job. Halimbawa, that person should be a college graduate, and also the characteristic is important, also the abilities of course, and syempre yung experience niya from the past work kung meron. The leisure industry has much to learn from professional selectors of people. Leisure employers, by the nature of their function, usually lack the continuous interviewing experience and the knowledge needed to grow the job market effectively. So, sa leisure industry, dapat daw ma-engage sila sa professional sectors kasi they lack of time to have continuous interview. And other process, they do more about that person. A selection process. Selecting the right person is made more effective if a logical sequence is followed, which is based on proven successful. Video art films illustrate selection techniques and the need for a methodological process. So, ayun nga, mas naging successful or effective ang pagpili ng tamang tao for the job if they will follow the logical sequence or ang pagkakasunod-sunod or the process of selecting a right person based sa 5 key steps. Ito nga yung first is describe and define the job. Should you fill the old one? Should you create a new one? Can you reallocate the workload? It is wise to avoid seeking a replica of the previous job holder as not two people are alike the job will have changed. Instead, use the vacancy to bring about necessary change and improvement. The job description defines the job. Second, specify a profile of person whose qualities are likely to meet the requirements of the job. Detail expertise, experience skills, and qualifications that are likely to fit the job. Third, set out the conditions of the job, including pay, benefits, and prospects. Fourth, choose methods of communicating and publicizing the vacancy seeking to match the person to the job. Last, select sensitively, carefully, and methodically. Has Haphazard selection can be ineffective and unfair. Search and enable candidates to express their capabilities, enthusiasm, weakness, and strength. Selectors need to satisfy themselves on numbers of matters. Is the candidate capable of doing the job? Does he/she have the right qualification and real celebrity in the field? Will the candidate fit well into the organization and get on well with people? Is he/she the best capable candidate? It is the right person for the job. Does he/she have courage to do the right things, to be effective in meeting objectives, or just the ability to be efficient doing things right? Is he/she a good leader, able to make decisions and to delegate? Is the candidate happy with the terms of conditions? Investment in people pays off. Staff employed will require a high level of dedication if the potential of leisure service and facilities are to be realized. They will also need to be appraised as part of their development and for the good of the organization.
Staff appraisal. Staff need to be effective. If they are also motivated, they will experience a sense of worthwhileness, a value far beyond salaries and conditions. Being effective doesn't mean having certificate hanging on the wall. It means meeting in full measure the requirement of the job. Therefore, staff needs to know exactly what is required of them and how they are performing. Appraisals provide the opportunity to achieve better results. There are different appraisal systems. The system which is chosen should meet the objectives. Comparative systems compare one employee's performance with others. They do not allow for two-way communication. Other methods are more independent. They include, first, writing a report on the employee, which is limited by subjectivity. Second, appraising an individual against specific traits, such as initiative. Third, rating an employee on a numerical or alphabetical scale. Fourth, a range of more sophisticated techniques. Appraisal reports could include measurement of current duties, professional and technical competency, approach to work, loyalty, supervision of staff, upward and downward communication, interpersonal skills, achievements since previous appraisal, overall performance, and readiness for further responsibilities. Staff Handbook. The right staff need to be employed, trained, nurtured, and enabled to perform well for the organization and themselves. A staff handbook is a useful communications document, but only if it is read, understood, accepted, and used, and as long as it is efficiently flexible to meet exchanging circumstances. Working by the rule book can be like working to rule. The kiss of death to an organization, if ever there was one. The handbook production shall be clear, unambiguous, and unauthoritative. It should be attractive and well product, but not expensive, impracticable and glossy. It needs to be indexed for easy reference, personal and friendly in its style, and suited to its readers, yet factual and concise. The handbook is basically an exercise in communication. It is essential, therefore, that management and staff are consulted fully as to its contents and style and its distribution in order to achieve cooperation and acceptance. An aid memoire for producing a comprehensive handbook is set out below, drawing on the experience and employee handbook of the Harlow and District Sports Trust and other leisure centers. Guidelines for facility staffing structures. Outlined below are the 20 suggestions for improving leisure service staffing. 1. Understand the aims and objectives of the organization. 2. Select staff wisely and logically. Match the qualities of the candidate to the job. 3. Train and deploy. The way staff are trained and deployed affects results. 4. Study legislation. The law affects both employer and employee. 5. Understand management principles. Recognize the limitations of span of control and use of unity of command and logical assignment. 6. Create formal structures. Provide clear lines of authority. People like to know where they stand. 7. Flatten hierarchies. Horizontal structures empower staff to take on responsibility. 8. Permit informal structures. Recognize the importance of cross-communication. 9. Construct departments and decentralize. Divide the work into units and identify functions. Identify tasks and responsibilities attached to each position. Encourage decentralization. 10. Start with essential staff. When opening new facilities, start with essential staff and then build up as needs dictate. The full-time staff positions should be limited to immediate recognizable functions. To cope with initial, additional demands, core staff should be encouraged to go to extra mile, led by the manager, and use training and part-time staff. 11. Create team management. Recognize the value of team management to coordinate long hours and a varied program. 12. Use line and staff approaches. Avoid rigid line structures. Consider appropriate hybrids to meet a particular situation. 13. Make conditions flexible. The flexibility, hours, and patterns of use of leisure facilities called for flexible conditions which encourage initiative and do not limit staff functions. 14. Consider alternative structures. Appreciate the relative value of additional, different forms of community recreation management. Train and support voluntary assistants, outreach service workers, immature, etc., and consider job sharing. Consult with trade unions. 15. Produce staff handbook. 16. Establish management information systems. Use the organization structure to best effect in disseminating information and in communication. 17. Establish an appraisal system. 18. Use structures as means, not ends. A structure chart is a management tool. It must be used. It must be changed to meet changing situations. 19. Empower staff. Many management theorists believe that tomorrow's business organizations will be non-hierarchical, and a wide range of talented staff will be empowered to handle resources and make managerial decisions. 20. Reward staff collectively for success. From time to time, say twice a year, when excellent results or efforts have been made, reward the staff with a party, a gift, or some novel event.